members of the LGBTQIA plus community face 3 to 4 times the kind of mental health challenges that somebody who's not from the community faces. The reason for that is there's a term called minority stress, which is basically which kind of includes stress processes like bullying, fear of rejection, internalized homophobia.
You kind of again address them with a certain pronoun that they have not identified themselves with.
Where you'll find so many heterosexual couples going through, but it's basically saying that what we are going through is also normal.
Normal, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I feel the change is slow. So why do you think that is? My coffee mug is full and my heart is even fuller because I'm doing the inaugural episode for Times Prime first podcast Out and Evolving. Hi everyone, I'm Parul Kaul, the head of marketing at Times Prime. Today marks the occasion of Pride Month. We are launching this podcast as a celebration of love, acceptance and authenticity. And for the inaugural episode, we're discussing one of the most basic yet pertinent questions about inclusivity. What do we do to be more inclusive? What it means to be inclusive at a workplace? Joining me today are two gentlemen who've actually made a lot of stride in this space. I have Rohan, who's the founder of Evolve, and I have Abhinav with me, who is the head of small and medium businesses at Google India and is also invested in diversity and is the lead for Pride at Google India chapter. So thank you so much for joining in. I will start with Abhinav. Abhinav, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and this journey of becoming a new role model and advocate for the community?
Of course. Thank you so much. Firstly, I feel like role model is such a heavy and a very loaded term.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you a little about my journey and what I aspire to do in this space. So I, of course, identify as a member of the queer community myself. And for the longest time, I wasn't really out at work or the different workplaces that I worked at. There's this one fine day when we had what we call a team-wide town hall, which is attended by employees across the globe. And I heard our managing director, who's based in US, a woman, who was sharing her diversity narrative with all of us.
Yeah.
And as she spoke through her diversity narrative, she was talking about how she's a lesbian woman, she has a same-sex partner, they're raising 2 kids together. And that was the first time that I really saw a woman, which anyways, at least in the Indian context, is an underrepresented community, talking about her sexual orientation, which is also on the underrepresented spectrum.
Correct.
And someone like this is actually a leader. She's a managing director of a very, very large global organization, and she's out and proud about it. And it also struck to me immediately that this was the first time that I was seeing someone who was a leader talk about their sexual orientation so openly and being so proud about it. And that got me thinking that, one of the reasons why I've probably never been very open about my orientation at workplaces is just because I haven't seen representation. I haven't seen others who are open about it. And I was like, we need to do more here. And while I didn't have very strong reasons for being open or not being open, that moment when I saw her and heard her was an inspiration that if I were to put myself out there, one, it gives that representation which I couldn't see, but it gives that representation for a lot of other folks to kind of have. And secondly, it just gives you so much of a comfort factor to be your authentic self when you come to work every day. When someone's asking you a question about your weekend, you don't have to shy away from telling them about how you spent the weekend with your partner and with your family, which you would have to do if you were not out and open and your authentic self at work. So to your question about what do I aim to do? I just aim to create that representation for others to kind of look forward to.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great start for us also at Times Prime, just, listening to you today. I think if, the one of the takeaways could be about, being your authentic self. And I think that's so beautiful as we start. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing.
And, I have, Rohan here, who's actually the founder of Evolve, which was actually Google's best app for personal growth in 2021. So what was the basic idea of launching Evolve, and why did you think about having a mental health app which would focus on the community? What was the idea behind it?
I think for us at Evolve, when we started Evolve, we were a mental health platform for everybody. When we started off. But over a period of about 2 years, what we realized was that we saw a lot of members of the
Yeah.
community coming on and gravitating towards the app.
Yeah.
And we were like, there's something happening here. Why are so many members of the community coming to the app?
Yeah.
We did a little bit of a research.
Yeah.
We saw data, and there were three big things that we saw. One, members of the LGBTQIA plus community face 3 to 4 times the kind of mental health challenges that somebody who's not from the community faces.
Yeah.
And when I talk about mental health challenges, these are suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. And then we start figuring out why that is happening. And these stressors are actually chronic and they're around you. There's
Yeah.
nothing that somebody from the community can do about it because these are so societal.
Yeah.
And so we were like, hey, this is a big problem. Then we were like, what are the kind of numbers, right? Like, how many people? Is it a small niche? We started looking at the numbers and we were like, 1 out of 5 in Gen Z is identifying as a part of the community.
Yeah.
So we're like, hey, this is a problem that needs to be addressed. For me personally, I identify as a gay man. And this became like a personal mission that and as a founder, I wanted to go on. And I was like, then if I have to contribute the next 5 to 10 years of my life to something, then this is what will inspire me to wake up every day and have a double bottom line, right? The first bottom line for
Correct.
any business is
Yeah.
ROI, is profitability.
True.
The other one is actually the impact that you're making on the world. So for
Absolutely,
me,
yeah.
just being on this mission has been extremely empowering, honestly, for me.
As you rightly said, there are people who actually go through, you use the word minority stress, and sometimes they don't even know about it. But if there's a platform where they feel welcomed and they can be their true self, I think it's really important and imperative. So thank you so much for thinking about an app where we can all go and be our own self.
Thank you to you and the whole team at Times Prime to really bring out the authenticity of products and representation for the LGBTQIA community. Appreciate it, honestly.
I think we're off to a very humble and thanking each other start. I think the conversation will get spicier now because I have some pertinent questions regarding certain trends. Because if you see the way we raise awareness, everything has become a hashtag. But if you see whether it's paternal leaves, whether it's period leaves, it becomes like a topic of discussion, on social media. But what really is the true impact is something that, is still has to be questioned.
What makes a difference, though, is behavior, and how do you inculcate that behavior more widely within every single member of the workforce?
Correct.
One small example that's my favorite, and I run like a lot of workshops at my workplace around this, is called inclusive language. So if there's one hashtag we are looking for, it's hashtag inclusive language.
True.
I'll give you small examples. When you're interviewing somebody, when you're interviewing a candidate for a role in your organization, and you get a CV in front of you, right? Let's say the CV says like Sumit XYZ. You kind of assume that Sumit is a man, right? You immediately start writing emails around, is he available for an interview? When are we meeting him? There's a natural association.
Yeah.
And when you talk to this candidate, you kind of, again, address them with a certain pronoun that they have not identified themselves with, right?
Correct, yeah.
You do the same within your team. When you start a team meeting, you say, hey guys, how's everyone doing,
Correct,
right?
yeah.
There are people there who are, maybe just very apparently not guys, and there are people who may not want to identify as guys, but they would not challenge that language openly because, like we discussed, this is not a space where it's easy to kind of be out and very authentic about yourself. What the use of non-inclusive language does is that over a period of time, it alienates these people.
True.
Another small example is asking a man on your team, hey, are you married? Right? Now, for example, if that man belongs to the community, they can't be bold enough to say that I'm not, and I'm not allowed to in this country yet, right?
Yeah.
So I think that those are the kind of things that truly make a difference. Using inclusive language kind of makes everyone feel like there's a space for them. When you're using pronouns that are more neutral, when you're using gender terms, instead of like using husband, wife, are you using terms like spouse or partner, which are more gender neutral? It makes everybody, including people who may or may not be on the spectrum, makes them all feel more welcome, allows them the space to be more authentic. And people who feel more welcome and more authentic are multiple times more productive. If you're looking at business benefits out of this, they're actually going to be so much more productive.
Yeah, I think the real inclusivity would come where all of us, kind of be a little more aware in the way we talk. I think it's taken me 10 years to now not get angry when people call me and say, hi, sir. I get cold emails that says, "Dear sir, I am," and in fact, I actually go to various talks, and when they're like, "Okay, so are you the head of marketing, or there's someone else joining in?" So those are the kind of conversations that we're in, and while there is there has been improvement, like since I joined workforce, and it's been 10 years, but I think this is more profound. It's something that we have to all work towards it. So Rohan, from your perspective, that you've launched an app, and you want to do this for the next 10 years, but how do you want to raise awareness for this? So what, like at Evolve, do you use do you do these kind of workshops? Can people enroll for it? Are there things like this where if some, for example, I might not be aware, but I would want to be a part of it, and I would want to be more inclusive. Is there a way where I could reach out, maybe DM you on social media, and if there are any trainings or etc. that you do?
I think at Evolve, what we focused at is especially the mental health and wellness of the LGBTQ community, right?
Correct, yeah.
So our primary target audience is somebody who's exploring, is trying to understand their own sexuality, their own gender identity, and really handhold them and guide them through the process of the kind of stresses that they deal with day in and day out, right? So we've got a 3C kind of a framework. We love frameworks, but the 3C framework that we use is actually content, community, and coaching. So we've got a lot of content by and for the community. For somebody who's in their own process of discovering or exploring, they can find content that will handhold them through the whole process by somebody who's a role model, right? So we're trying to democratize the content creation process. Then we've also got a community onto the platform where there's peer-to-peer learning. What we've realized with minority and underrepresented communities is that you just want to feel validated, right? Most of the time, the workplace microaggressions that happen is micro invalidations. Like people don't understand that this is a valid experience that you might be going through because they've not seen it, right? So underrepresented communities really want to find their experience normalized, right? Like, for example, I was talking to Abhinav the other day, and I was like, I'm looking for friends who are going through same stages in their relationship as me, right? Where you'll find so many heterosexual couples going through, but it's basically saying that what we are going through is also normal, right? So we've got a community layer, and then we've got a coaching layer where you can actually connect to mental health experts, role models, or guides who can talk to you and create that space for you one-on-one. And take you through a professional coaching experience on how do you really thrive at a workplace, or even navigate your personal life. For allies, I think that we as Evolve are just creating a lot of awareness about the kind of challenges, right? Like there's a lot of changes that are happening in the society, and we want to contribute by creating awareness, by making them understand there is a differentiated need for this community because of the society that exists right now, because of the kind of stigma that exists.
It actually brings me, to some thoughts that I've been having, that, when a person actually comes to workplace, there are certain defined, strong beliefs, value systems that you come with. So how does the whole unlearning process happen? Like, how does that happen for an employee?
Yeah. Because you're talking about trainings, let me talk about one training that I was actually attending, not facilitating, several years back. This was a training on how to be a better LGBTQ plus ally, right? And the facilitator had this slide where there were these 4 basic principles that you need to follow if you want to be a good ally to the community. Those principles were inclusion, empowerment, authenticity. And by the time the facilitator was done talking about all of these, he actually said, so basically just be a good human being. Right?
True.
Because these this is not rocket science. These are not out of the box ideas, right? On what can you do better. You need to empathize. You need to make sure that you are open to new ideas. You need to make sure that you're respectful of somebody else's ideas. And as long as you imbibe those very fundamental qualities of not just being a good human being, but more specific to the workplace, being a good professional and being a good leader, if that's what you aspire to be, those are pretty much all the same mantras, right? You make better products, you make better business decisions, you make more collaborative and more inclusive teams if you're willing to unlearn and stay pace with the philosophies that are evolving around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that I've seen works beautifully in a corporate place with like a lot of other things kind of thrown in.
Karnataka became the first state to reserve jobs for transgenders only in 2021. We have Tata Steel, which was actually one of the first ones to come out and have funding for gender reassignment surgeries. So the change is happening, but I feel the change is slow. So why do you think that is? And what could actually expedite the process?
I think the change can happen. There are two parts to the change.
Yeah.
One is we touched upon policies and behavior change.
Yeah.
The other is culture change, and culture change happens from leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, Abhinav being a role model and a leader at his organization, making it normalizing professionals and managers
Yeah.
to show up authentically can really drive culture change.
Yeah,
So how do we accelerate is the question.
Yeah.
Podcasts
Yeah,
and
of
conversations
course.
like this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Times Prime.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abhinav. I feel like these are conversations, and we touched upon this earlier when we were just chatting outside.
Yeah.
This cannot just be happening in June.
Yeah. This can't. Yeah.
This is an agenda we need to drive 365 days a year, and we
Correct.
do that at Evolve.
Yes.
And
We need, I think, more organizations to kind of do this, not just...
we
wait
need
for the-
leaders and
Yeah.
leaders like you and everybody else who believe in this to
Yeah.
be the change that you want to see.
Yeah. That's...
Quoting Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
No, huge plus on to what Rohan said. And
Yeah.
there are two other things that come to my mind that are very important.
Yeah.
Access and skill, right? See, we are talking here about communities, and I'll
Yeah.
take the trans community as an example, right? These are historically and systemically disadvantaged communities
Correct.
for generations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What that leads to is oftentimes then not having access to the kind of skill sets that organizations are looking for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And secondly, access just to even get in touch with those organizations, being able to apply, being able to be in the consideration set.
Yeah.
And we all know how access to organizations works. Like you have like professional networks, you need to kind of sometimes apply directly. A lot of times organizations hire from colleges.
Correct.
So then do these individuals have access to those colleges themselves or not?
Yeah.
So it's again, it goes back to systemic disadvantage that's
Yeah.
not easy to undo over a short period of time.
Yeah.
What I think organizations need to start investing a lot in is in upskilling talent for the future.
Yeah.
I think it's given the kind of economic realities that everybody's facing,
Yeah.
and when people are looking for talent, they're always looking for talent that's ready.
And
One mindset shift that's needed is how do we nurture and build talent? How do we build that skill set for the long term?
Correct.
And this is where equity comes in, right?
Yeah.
So we had this amazing, it's a visual example, unfortunately.
yeah,
I can't
know.
show
I
it
was
here.
about to mention that, but there are 3 blocks, they're at the same level.
Yes, and people with
Yeah.
different heights,
Heights are
starting on
actually-
different blocks,
But
right?
that's not how you actually give them the other, advantage. You need to make them come at the same pedestal.
Exactly.
Instead of giving them the same pedestal.
Exactly. And that's basically what we need to do.
Yeah.
And the one other thing which, because you mentioned that there's a lot of research, etc., that's happening
Yeah.
around this. What research often misses in this space is that people don't self-identify easily.
Yeah, easily.
So do we accurately know what the representation of members from the queer community is in the workplace?
Yeah.
I would say there's a huge error of margin. I don't know if it's lesser than what we want. I don't know if it's more than what we want.
Yeah.
I have no idea because it's so difficult to do that, right? I would leave that as an open question because there are so many thoughts and opinions on that one. Do we want people to necessarily identify? Is it okay if they don't? It's obviously okay if someone doesn't want to identify. How do we build confidence that we are doing the right thing?
Yeah.
The one thing that I always go back to is just making sure that irrespective of what my organization's composition is looking like, when I'm hiring, I'm building a diverse pipeline of candidates. I'm making sure that people who are interviewing on behalf of my organization, they are a diverse panel of interviewers, right? And by diverse panel, I don't necessarily mean, for example, somebody from the queer community only. Diverse thoughts and ideas come from anywhere. I would want to make sure that if I have an interviewing panel, I've got like a woman on the panel. I sometimes make sure that there's somebody who's kind of belonging to the people with disability spectrum, because everyone who who kind of has seen some kind of disadvantage in their lives, they kind of understand what it
that.
means to be in that space.
Correct.
So having a diverse panel to hire people is like a very important piece.
And that's exactly what I think you were talking about. And we need to have these conversations with our friends as well, wherein we talk about how to make these spaces safe for anyone to come and apply for that job, irrespective of what your background or your gender is. Okay, so Rohan, you told us that you identify as a gay man. So and you came out a little late in life. So how has that journey been?
I think it was my personal journey has been about self-acceptance. I think there's a lot about internalized homophobia that comes from the society and the kind of upbringing that we've had. So for me, the biggest battle was the battle inside, and that's just personal. Honestly, every person who's dealing with this because of the societal stigma goes through a different journey, and there's no right way to experience it. But my personal journey was around just accepting who I was, and then it became very, very comfortable.
That's actually so very heartfelt. So Abhinav, did you also have a similar kind of journey? Like, would you want to share that with us?
Absolutely. I think firstly, I was very, very lucky and privileged to have a community of friends around me to whom this was business as usual. They were so supportive right from day one. I never had to worry about did I have acceptance or not, right? And I think that was also kind of starting point about just being myself and being more comfortable at the workplace.
I think while time has just flown, what is my major takeaway from this conversation is, being a better human being in everything that you do. I think everything just proceeds. While, we're talking about workplace inclusivity, diversity, these sound like big terms, but ultimately it boils down to you as a person. If you're just a little bit more mindful and aware, there is a huge, a sea of change that we can actually drive all of us as individuals. So as we're actually coming to the end of a conversation, if there's one takeaway that you would want the listeners to have, what would that be? And I mean, I'm okay if Rohan wants to.
It's perfectly okay to be you, and it's okay to take time to get there as well.
Yeah.
So take your time to get there, and it's perfectly fine to be you.
Oh, true. Yeah.
I think the one takeaway I would have would actually be for all the allies out there who want to support the community.
Yeah.
Practice humility. This can be a complex space to understand. We were earlier talking about like conditioning, for example, especially in a country like India, there's a lot of cultural, social conditioning over decades. So some of these concepts, they often get tagged as like these newfangled ideas. They might be newfangled. Let's sometimes also admit like maybe these ideas haven't existed. This awareness hasn't existed. Just have the humility to learn, make yourself more aware, educate yourself. I'm an avid proponent of trainings and workshops for no other reason but they give you avenues to expand your own horizons. So just be humble enough to know that you could also make some mistakes on your journey. Say I'm sorry, move on, learn more, don't repeat that mistake. Be an amazing ally. That's my one takeaway.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I think it's really important to see that, how we're embracing everything that's new that's happening around us, whether it's, we all feel that, AI is going to take our jobs. It's very daunting, but now look at us. We're actually trying to utilize that in our daily work. I think it's the same thing. These are not daunting tasks. This is just about making a small change and being aware of the environment that you're in. And then you wouldn't need an evolve. You wouldn't need a Pride Month to celebrate because it will be a part of you. Thank you so much, Rohan. Thank you so much, Abhinav. I think it's been a great Friday. I do not want a weekend. I think I can keep on working because I've met both of you today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Parul. It's been a pleasure.
And while this is an inaugural episode with Rohan and Abhinav, we will have another episode. You'll see Rohan and me again with a different guest. But till then, please subscribe to the Evolve Plus subscription on the Times Prime app. All right. You can tune in to this episode on Spotify and also on YouTube. Kindly subscribe to Times Prime on YouTube.